Violence ripped through Chicago over the weekend with at least 40 shots in a less than 7-hour period. The burst of violence contributing to one of the city's bloodiest weekends of the year.
We have a heavy heart. Our souls are burdened. What happened this weekend did not happen in every neighborhood in Chicago, but it is unacceptable to happen in any neighborhood of Chicago.
In all, from Friday afternoon to early Monday, 75 people were shot. Of those, 12 were killed. Among the attacks, police said gunmen targeted a block party and a gathering after a funeral. Their victims' ages spanning from 11 to 62 years old. The shootings coming as thousands converge for Lollapalooza, a massive music festival in Chicago's downtown. They also come as authorities say gun violence in the city has dropped.
I'm still pleased between CPD's work, the mayor's investments, and the work of our community members that we're still reducing overall gun violence this year. But we still have a lot more work to do. And I think that was evidenced by this weekend.
Jumping into the gun violence debates was President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, who in a series of tweets blamed Democrats for the violence and ended his tirade by saying, quote, "Make Chicago safe again."
I actually want to talk to my Chicago family that's over there in Chicago. You feel me? To all of my subscribers or just people in general, man. What's going on over there, though, man? Check this out, though, right? All of those murders that is going on over there in Chicago, man. Let me tell you something right about now. A lot of those murders in the city, they are being done by police and armed mercenaries, and they blaming them on gangs. Because how is it that Chicago is always winding up with a whole bunch of murders, but a lot of these murders go unsolved? Let me tell you something right now. I talked to a retired police officer a couple of years ago, and he told me, he said all those murders in the inner cities are not black on black crime. They're being done by police, because a lot of these areas, they are gang activity, and also as well, they be taking gang members and dropping them off in other gang members' neighborhoods and wind up having them killed. And also too, they were saying that when I talked to somebody, so I'm talking to somebody else from Chicago, they were saying that sometimes they be having like guys coming up on them on cars with unmarked vehicles with masks on. Just because they riding up on you with unmarked vehicles on them with masks on, that don't necessarily mean, you know what I mean, that is somebody else, or there might be somebody from the, you know, you good, man, you good. You know, there might be somebody else from the inner city, you feel me? Now, I'm not going to say it's not going on. I'm not going to say there's no, I really don't want to call it black on black crime, rather just call it crime anyway. But okay, well, since, you know what I mean, think about it though, right? If black on black crime goes unpunished, how is it there's so many murders in the daggone city, but a lot of these murders go unsolved? That is because it is connected to organ trafficking. They are doing it over there in Chicago because Chicago has become ground zero where they're attacking melanated people that's over there. Chicago is a very deep place. It is a very special place, but I'm going to tell y'all, my Chicago family, they are lying to y'all about these murders. All of these murders are not quote-unquote black on black crime. They being done by police and undercover police, and they are blaming it on murders. If you don't got to believe me, go back and watch one of my videos. And I talked to like 1 or 5 cops, and they told me this stuff is going on. So don't believe none of the media, man, because they always want to heighten up, you know what I mean, things that's going on in Chicago. How is it you always got 60 damn bodies, but where the suspects? You feel me? There's always some massive shooting in Chicago, but there's no body, you know what I mean? I'm going to say you might find the body sometime, but sometimes, you know, a lot of times you don't hear no damn suspects. That's the same thing that happened over here when the Freddie Gray situation came about. How is it we have 45 murders in 1 month but no suspects? How is it Chicago always having 60 damn shootings and maybe like 12 dead, but there's no fucking body or there's no suspect? A lot of these murders, they are being done by undercover police. They are committing these murders, man. They are committing the murders. I definitely will say it's 50-50, but all of us are not killing one another like that, because it's not enough guns. And I'm gonna say where the guns come from. These guns are being dumped off. Crates of guns are being dumped off in Chicago. If there are no gun stores in the black community, where are all these fucking guns coming from? Assault rifles and shit like that, you feel me? So you best believe there's something going on behind the scenes. But I had to come to y'all with this video, man, shed thoughts up on this, because I felt the need that y'all had to hit the subject. They are stealing our organs. They're committing these murders and stealing the organs over there. You feel me? But I just had to come to y'all with this video, man, shed thoughts up on it, shed light up on the situation. I felt the need of y'all to hit this subject. Keep on liking and subscribing.
This is not a case of gang violence. I have said it before. I am going to say it now. I am going to say it again. Okay, for all my Chicago people, I really start paying attention to what was going on in Chicago after the Kenneka Jenkins murder. Okay, there was a lot of speculation that her organs had been sold, and after I start looking into the organ trafficking situation in Chicago, I learned that in fact a couple of blocks away from the hotel where Kenneka Jenkins was murdered, there had the FBI had raided a factory that were harvesting organs. Okay, and then the second thing I want to talk about was the fact that they are blaming these mass shootings, and they are blaming the so-called rampant gang violence and black on quote unquote black on black crime, the high ratings, the mass amounts of all the death that's going on in Chicago. They're blaming these deaths on gang members. Yes, every once in a while, gang members do get into it, but people getting killed, over 30 people being shot in 3 hours, that is not gang violence, okay? And I don't know why a lot of us are going for this, and why a lot of us are not standing up for what's really going on in Chicago. I'm gonna tell you what's really going on. What's really going on in Chicago is there is a faction of the police there is a organized a white terrorist organization known as the Oath Keepers. Okay, these are rogue white supremacist organized a part of the police department. Okay, and not only in Chicago, the Oath Keepers are all over the United States of America. I believe that these Oath Keepers, I have said it before, I'm saying it again, they dress up, they even put on clone masks. They are in these cars that look like gang members' cars. They are the ones that are going around in Chicago and murdering and shooting up these people in this neighborhood. And when you get a span of 30 people shot in 3 hours, that is not gang violence. Honey, those are white supremacists gunning down black people in these communities, and nobody is saying anything about it. Okay, the Chicago Police Department knows what's going on. Rahm Emanuel knows what's going on. They are picking off people like they are picking grapes off of a vine. Okay, and they're trying to make it seem like it is the violence in Chicago is just out of hand because of gang violence and because of the residents of these inner city areas in Chicago, and that is not what's going on. Okay, they are. I truly believe that they are trying to make the country believe that this predominantly black inner city area of Chicago is so violent that they have to implement some kind of a National Guard or some kind of a military enforcement to a militarized zone in order to keep the peace in this city. We have even heard 45 speak about gun violence in Chicago, but what he's really doing, they're setting up some kind of agenda. Okay, they're setting up, this is some kind of drill, just because if they can get away with this state-sanctioned murder of black people, genocide that I'm always talking about, they're going to do it in other inner city areas across this country. That is all this is. This is orchestrated. This is deliberate. This is not black on black crime. This is rogue police in undercover type cars wearing clone masks and putting on gang colors, shooting down and killing black people. Okay, and they're thinking that nobody, as well, and then make it so bad they never bring in any suspects. You know, nobody's ever arrested, and if they are arrested, they're innocent because they don't know what they're talking about. It's just they are murdering. They are committing genocide on our people, and nobody is saying anything about it. Okay? It is ridiculous. Let me run this little news report, and I'll come back to close.
And dozens of families waited for word on shooting victims being treated at Stroger Hospital.
This hospital is almost like a trauma center in a war zone.
The hospital says it was never placed on lockdown, but police blocked the emergency room driveway amid rising tensions. It was the culmination of a shameful and shocking night of violence in which at least 5 people were killed and more than 30 people were wounded in a 24-hour period between Saturday at 10 in the morning and Sunday at 10 in the morning.
It affects the whole community.
The violence included an unheard of 5 mass shootings, incidents in which 3 or more people were shot. In Gresham, 8 people were shot. In Lawndale, 6 people were shot. In a separate incident in Lawndale, 4 were shot. In West Humboldt Park, 4 people were shot, and in West Garfield Park, 3 were shot.
We have a challenge, and it requires all of us, not just our police officers.
Mayor Rahm Emanuel called the shootings unacceptable and pledged that the police were doing everything possible to protect all parts of the city.
We have way too many guns on the street and not enough values.
Despite the fact that Chicago police have taken 5,500 illegal guns off the streets so far this year and the city's homicide rate is declining, Chief of Patrol Fred Waller was blunt in his assessment of the weekend.
I'm not going to pour syrup over and tell you it's pancakes.
Back at Stroger Hospital,
I represent the hospital. I represent the area.
Congressman Danny Davis said the city had become a symbol of the need for national gun control.
We still don't do enough to control the flow of guns, especially automatic weapons.
In the meantime, as retaliation shootings are feared, police say they'll be conducting coordinated enforcement in targeted neighborhoods.
We will not. I promise you that we will not be defeated.
And tonight, among the victims are at least 11 teenagers. The youngest person shot was just 11 years old. Reporting live this evening outside of Chicago.
That is crazy. We've heard reports of people saying that they literally drop off crates of guns in alleyways in the inner city area of Chicago. What do you think that all these black people that have all these supposed automatic weapons, where do you think they are getting these guns from? They are not simply buying these guns illegally from illegal gun suppliers. They are literally dropping these guns off in these communities in order to wreak havoc. And did you hear the reporter say that the violence rate is going down? Because the violence rate is going down, that means that the people in those communities are not the ones committing these murders. So you're going to have 30 people shot in the span of 3 hours, but the violence rate is going down. That doesn't make any sense. That is
I know that you've probably seen a lot of stuff that's been going on in Chicago, with all these murderings and things like that. I guess my question is, you got kids out here that's 21, 22 years old as murdering people, and in the process, they hitting babies. So Donald Trump's problem solving to this is to bring in the feds and bring in tanks and things like that. And I think that's only gonna make things worse. So I just wanted to hear your views on that. And then I think I was gonna try to take that and go back into the economics about that.
Yes, sir. First of all, it's a contradiction for any government to claim that they're bringing in military to protect the lives of some, okay, while they allow their police, which is an extension of the military as a result of the Patriot Act and Homeland Security, to kill other black folks. They're not bringing in the FBI and the National Guard to protect black folks. They're bringing in the FBI and the National Guard to protect white property and to protect white economic interests. That's the only reason why they are in there. It is capitalism times racism. The job of the police and the military in a capitalist society is to protect the economic infrastructure. And the purpose of the police and the military in a racist society is to eliminate the population that is unwanted. So they're coming in to fulfill the agenda of capitalism and racism, protect the economics and the infrastructure and the institutions, and at the same time wipe out black folks. I believe before this is all said and done with Chicago, I believe before it's all said and done, I don't know how many years from now we're going to find this out, but I very much believe that it's going to be revealed at some point in time that there was a mercenary army that was hired and employed by either the state government of Illinois or the city government or possibly even the federal government to go in and systematically reduce the population of black folks in Chicago. There's no way you're going to convince me that all of these murders are the result of angry black males when you have cameras on every major intersection in Chicago. I spend a lot of time in Chicago. There's no way you're going to get away with a murder in that city and it not be recorded. This is being orchestrated by the government. You've seen the Purge 1, you've seen the Purge 2, you've seen the Purge 3, Chicago's Purge 4.
But for those of you who have heard me discuss Chicago, and not only Chicago, but all the cities where black on black crime seems to be a major issue, I have repeatedly stated over and over again, that the murders in Chicago are not black on black crime. They are simply being presented as black on black crime. But I said that there is a mercenary army operating disguised as gangsters and civilians who are killing defenseless Africans in Chicago in the effort of population removal. You have heard me say this time and time again, that the Chicago government, the Illinois government, and the United States Department of Homeland Security, the CIA, FBI, and the military are bringing in mercenaries into Chicago, hired assassins to reduce the population of black people in Chicago. That is exactly the premise of the first Purge movie. I need y'all to understand this. If you've studied psychology, you know this. America has a long history of conducting very large psychological experiments related to violence and obedience to violence. Let me say it again. If you've ever studied history, you know that America, psychology in particular, the field of psychology in particular, has a very long history of studying violence so that it can be used for military, social, political, and economic purposes. I want to go over 3 of the major psychological studies that America has conducted in the past, okay, to be used to study and use violence as a weapon against groups of people. This is important because I need you to understand that the Purge movies are not imagination. The Purge movie is nothing but a replication, a sensationalized version of psychological studies that were done in America almost 50 years ago. This is not new. This is not new. In fact, when you look at the way the Purge movie was conducted, it was conducted just like an experiment. And when you heard the language in the movie, they even called it an experiment. It was no coincidence it was in a black neighborhood. It was no coincidence it was in New York, the largest black metropolis in America. This is all by design. It's no coincidence they paid people $5,000 to stay at home and participate in the Purge. In fact, the first study that I want to go over is specifically relates to the Purge. The first study was the Stanley Milgram study conducted in 1961. And you know what was going on in America in 1961, black social chaos. What was going on in America in 1961, Jim Crow, civil rights. In 1961, during the civil rights struggle, Stanley Milgram at Yale University conducted an obedience to authority study on the use of violence. I want you all to know that the first Purge, and all of the Purge movies, but the first Purge speaks directly to black people. This last Purge movie speaks directly to us. This Stanley Milgram 1961 Yale University study on the obedience to authority as it relates to the dissemination of violence. I'm going to give it to you again. The study was called The Obedience to Authority by way of use of violence. Obedience to authority by way of the use of violence. So, let me tell you what happened in the Milgram study. They had volunteers, just like the Purge movie, volunteers. Some of these volunteers were teachers, and some of these volunteers were students. Okay. The teachers were instructed to administer a shock to the students whenever they got a question wrong. The teachers were required to administer a shock to the students whenever they got a question wrong. And the more questions they got wrong, the stronger the shock violence became. Even when the students started to protest against the violence, even when the students began to protest against the violence, the teachers continued to deliver the painful shock, even when it conflicted with their own personal moral beliefs. This is important because in the first Purge movie, you had black people who didn't believe in violence, but who were willing to become violent because the government said that they could, and the government would pay them for doing so. Let me repeat that. The Purge is identical to the 1961 Stanley Milgram experiment. In both the Purge and in the Milgram experiment of Yale University, people participated in violence. In the Purge movie, it was killing. In the Milgram experiment, it was the delivery of a painful shock to students who got questions wrong. In both cases, the Purge movie and the Milgram experiment at Yale, even though what they were being asked to do, conflicted with their personal moral beliefs, they did it anyway. Why? Because authority told them to. And the conclusion of the Milgram experiment was real simple. It was concluded by the psychologists who participated that even when people disagree with what they're being asked to do, even when people disagree with what they're being asked to do, they will still do it because they are more loyal to authority that they fear. This also explains slavery. They are more loyal to the authority that they fear than they are to their own sense of moral right and wrong. I would even argue that the Purge movie was created with the Milgram experiment as a foundation. The Purge movie is an extension of the 1961 Stanley Milgram psychological study. And guess what? The teachers were not really shocking the students, but they thought they were. The students were asked to act like it was hurting, and they made it look like they were hurting even more as the experiment went on. But the teachers did not stop, even though they could clearly see people were being hurt because authority told them to keep going. So this study shows that when the government gives people permission to kill or hurt others, they will do it. The Purge is real.